Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, where I am today. Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Andrew DiCecco from Inside the Birds. Football at 4 today as the Eagles get ready for the L.A. Chargers. And Andrew, as we move ahead to Thursday, we start to formulate more thoughts and opinions on this matchup. So we'll start with the matchup this week. And everybody seemingly, Andrew, is talking about the Chargers' inability to stop the run. In your mind, is that something that is a fair thing to discuss? Is that a myth? Is that something that the Eagles should be looking at if they're watching the L.A. Chargers?
No, that's a very real thing, Mike. And I envision this week being another big week for Boston Scott and Jordan Howard. Hopefully Nick Sirianni sticks with what worked last week, because you're going to have an even worse run defense, in my opinion, in the Chargers, that you really need to control the clock and keep that explosive offense on the sideline to really take control of the game.
Yeah, I know that the Eagles ran it over 40 times last week. I mean, is that absurd to suggest, Andrew, that might again be the game plan this week? Is, hey, if they can't stop it, keep doing it, because what happens? Justin Herbert doesn't get on the field as much if you're controlling the clock and if you're controlling the run game. So if you watch last week's game plan, would you say, hey, if that was your game plan last week, do it again this week?
Well, that makes sense to us, Mike, but I don't know if they're going to revert back to that run-dominant offense that we saw last week. I think you're going to see at least 25 pass attempts from Jalen Hurts this week, if I had to guess. And the problem is the fact that the Chargers offense is such a quick strike offense, and they have a guy like Austin Eckler and a tight end in Jared Cook, a veteran tight end who can really work the middle of the field and presents matchup problems. Then, of course, you have the jump ball, a receiver in Mike Williams, and the guy in Keenan Allen who can affect all three levels of the field. They can score in bunches. And what happens is if the Eagles have a plan to run the ball and all of a sudden the Chargers get out to a 10 to 14 nothing lead, that changes everything. And then all of a sudden you see the offense that you saw pretty much all season, which is Jalen Hurts dropping back 35 to 40 times a game, or 40 pass attempts a game.
Yeah. Hey, I obviously think with running the ball, the key is up front. And Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, and the rest of this offensive line, I thought Lane Johnson, watching him a little closer in last week's game, after the game, watching back, I thought he had a really good game as well. But really that left side of the line I thought dominated. And you would imagine up front in this game, this is a good pass rush typically from the Chargers, but they have struggled. And you would think the Eagles' offensive line is licking their chops this week.
Yeah, well, the Chargers, they have a very aggressive defensive line, and there's going to be opportunities there for the Eagles line to really dominate in that regard in the running game. And I really like what you said there about the left side of the line, because to me, you really saw a dominance from Landon Dickerson, and I mentioned Nate Herbig really surprised me last week. I thought he generated some good push in the interior, and you saw the running lane sort of open up for Jordan Howard and Boston Scott. And, yeah, I mean, that's going to be really, Mike, the recipe for success. Run the football, get your offensive line leaning on these guys, wearing on these aggressive pass rushers of the Chargers. And you don't really want Jalen Hurts dropping back when you got guys like Joey Bosa and Jerry Tillery bearing down on him. That's not going to be an ideal situation.
Yeah, Andrew, one thing for sure, that left side of the line I thought was pretty dominant, but you're right. The other side, too, with Johnson and Herbig, it's not like you got a guy. Last year, you would have multiple weak spots. I wouldn't say that there's really – and Kelsey, you can make an argument that he's playing at maybe at the top level that he has played. I mean, so there's not really a weak spot on the offensive line in the run game. I mean, the pass game, I think Herbig has a little bit of some issues there. I don't know if Dickerson is at his top form in pass blocking yet, but man, these five guys are really cohesive right now, run blocking together.
Yeah, and that's exactly why you got to go out and try to establish dominance and really dominate the point of attack, Mike, which is these guys are best suited right now in the running game. Obviously, that's what they're best equipped to do. So get these big bodies of these Eagles offensive linemen and lean on these pass rushers and these upfield pass rushers of the Chargers and at least try to make an effort to get that going in the early parts of the game, because the opportunities are going to be there. The running lanes will be there. You just got to take advantage of that, because they're going to give up. They'll give up 5 yards 5 yards a tote. But you just would hate to see Nick Sirianni revert back to the pass happy offense of old, because obviously it's not a recipe for success.
No, nope. And let me ask you, if they do throw the ball this week, I know every week it's like a broken record, Goddard. But to me, he seems like the guy that if you are going to throw the ball, run, play action, get Goddard in the seam, and there's your offense again this week. It's very similar to last week in the pass game.
Yeah, keep it simple. And it's you and I have been on the same page with Dallas Goedert. It seems like every week we've been saying that he needs to be a focal point in the offense, and that rings true again this week. The Chargers linebackers are better than some of the linebacking core the Eagles have faced in recent weeks. But and their safeties, I should mention that Derwin James is not only one of the best safeties he's one of the best defensive players in the NFL. And Nasir Adderley from University of Delaware, his counterpart on the back end, is pretty good himself. So I don't know that the explosive plays are going to be there from Dallas Goedert. I think that you could see him work the seams a little, work the short to intermediate area, and I think that you're going to see Quez Watkins and Devontae Smith get a little bit more involved this week. Obviously, Asante Samuel Jr. is in concussion protocol, and Michael Davis is a very beatable corner, undrafted free agent from BYU. He's been with them since 2017, has good length, good size, but I think that there's going to be an advantage on the perimeter there for the Eagles to take advantage of if they go to the pass heavy.
I was going to say, Andrew, what can the Eagles do to get these wide receivers more involved? I mean, look, everybody asked for more runs, but it's preposterous to assume they're going to run the ball 45 times a game every week. But they got to get more from these receivers. And I know there is more to get from Smith, but is Watkins a guy that you can get more from, or is this what he is? 3-4 touches, and you're hoping that one of those 3 or 4 go for a big gain. How do you get more from this core?
I'm glad that you mentioned Quez Watkins in that regard, Mike, because I've been asked that quite a bit lately. And is he a volume receiver? Is he someone that you've seen developments in? Yeah, I have, to answer your question. I think that his route running still needs improvement, but it is vastly improved from last season. He showed an ability to come up with some contested catches this year. Really, you started to see Jalen Hurts have a little bit of confidence in him and throwing some of those balls his way, because they don't really have a wide receiver equipped to do that. I think he can be a little bit more. Do I think he's going to be a volume receiver long term? No, but I think that he can give you 4 catches a game, 5 catches a game. I don't think you always have to rely on the home run ball with him. I think that he can also work the intermediary routes and find success there because of his route running improvement and his ability to come up with some balls that aren't necessarily thrown directly to him. I thought, for an example, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he showed really good body control on that 23-yarder over the middle where it was deflected and he had to turn his body to catch it. You don't see a whole lot of receivers on the Eagles right now that are able to make those type of adjustments. And when you have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts who struggles with ball placement, you're going to keep going to guys like Quez Watkins because he's not always going to throw the most accurate pass. Devontae Smith has run open routinely, Mike. If you look back week after week, he doesn't really have a problem getting open. It's Jalen Hurts' inability to see the field. I think he struggles. He still struggles in that regard. I think he's too quick to leave the pocket and let things develop, let these routes develop, because he had a touchdown, for example, last week to Devontae Smith that ended up resulting in a 43-yard field goal by Jake Elliott. So Jalen Reagor is someone that they're going to have to manufacture touches for. I don't think he can win traditionally on the outside through the route running. I think you're going to have to see a lot more of what you saw against the Detroit Lions, get him the ball on end arounds, jet sweeps, short screen pass to take advantage of his elusiveness and ability to rack up yards after the catch. But other than that, I think Watkins and Devontae Smith, they should be able to win on the outside as traditional wideouts.
Yeah, Reagor, by the way, was limited at practice today, so let's see if he doesn't go. I guess Greg Ward, is he more a factor? Do you go with John Hightower? What do you see there?
I think Greg Ward would be a piece of the offense. Certainly, he would have an elevated role, but again, he doesn't really tip the scale one way or the other. I mean, he's a reliable chain mover and sure-handed receiver. But I think that John Hightower would obviously get the promotion. He's been protected every week this season, so they obviously see some potential in him, and he came into the league as a raw player, and I think he was sort of thrown into the deep end a little bit prematurely. So now he's had a chance to get some seasoning on the practice squad. Obviously, he's a fast receiver, but he's also a pretty good route runner, Mike, and he needs to get stronger and develop his play strength. So we'll see if he is elevated, if he's able to do that. But he's more of a well-rounded receiver as opposed to a Greg Ward, who we already know what he is. So I would think that if Jalen Reagor can't go, you would see sort of a John Hightower, Greg Ward platoon.
Well, and last year, we saw Hightower was ahead, further along, according to the previous regime anyway, than Watkins was. I mean, he got more snaps last year than Quez Watkins did. So obviously, this coaching staff kind of sees it the opposite, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with the monumental second-year leap from Quez Watkins in training camp, that he really built up the trust of the coaching staff. And again, it is a new coaching staff, so you have to make, they came in with a clean slate, and Quez Watkins really attacked the offseason and worked on his deficiencies. And I think John Hightower sort of struggled with some of the same things that caused him to become inactive after he was prominently featured early in the season. I think he never really took that next step, and I think that he really never progressed from that point. So now he's able to work with the new coaching staff, who gives him different additional things to work on, get stronger, work on those things on the practice squad. So, again, if he gets an opportunity, he's going to have to make the most of it. But the reason why Quez Watkins has leapfrogged him is because of that big leap in the offseason and that strong training camp that he had.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. Let's cruise over. We're talking receivers. They've got two good ones over there. Williams is a very physical guy. He's been slowed by a knee injury recently, but he had a tremendous start, Mike Williams did, to the season. Keenan Allen is a pro wide receiver. He can do everything. So the Eagles, their secondary is going to have – this might be the best duo of receivers they'll see the rest of the year.
Yeah, and Mike Williams, he leads the Chargers in receiving yards with 517 and touchdowns in 6. He's going to be someone that if I were the Eagles, I would find a way to put Darius Slay on him. Darius Slay is going to be able to – he has the size. He can mix it up a little bit, get physical, because Mike Williams is always they're going to throw up those 50-50 balls to him, and he's very athletic, and he has that catch radius, and he's going to win those more often than not. So I would put a guy like Darius Slay on him and then have Steven Nelson on Keenan Allen, who is not a burner by any means, but he is one of the best route runners in the NFL. He can win on all three levels still, and he's just a savvy player. They have a very strong duo, and they also have Austin Eckler, who has 300 yards receiving himself, in addition to 400 yards on the ground. He's a multi-purpose running back that can really threaten those short to intermediate areas as well, create some mismatches there. So the linebackers are going to have to key on him quite a bit, because I think he's going to be factored into the game plan pretty heavily early on.
Yeah, I was going to say Eckler's a guy that the Eagles and Jared Cook, who I don't know that Cook's ever really hit his full potential, but he's like a Vernon Davis, where, man, the guy has freakish athletic ability, but has never really – Davis was better than Cook, but Cook, I feel like, never really hit his full potential. But the Eagles, we know, struggle with tight ends and then the backs out of the backfield. So this offense in Herbert, I mean, we know he's pretty good. This offense could be a little bit of a matchup problem.
Yeah, I think Austin Eckler, you hit the nail on the head. I think he's going to be the one player that they're going to struggle to contain. I think the back end will hold up fairly well with Mike Williams. I still think Keenan Allen. The Eagles have really struggled. You look at Hunter Renfrow with a couple weeks ago with the Raiders. They seem to struggle with those short routes and defending that. And I think that Jared Cook and Keenan Allen are going to have big games. Austin Eckler on the underneath routes. I don't know if they're going to give up many explosive big plays over the top, because neither receiver really is a burner. They have Guyton, who is their fast guy, but I think that he's not really a volume receiver. But you mentioned Jared Cook. I think Jared Cook, he's never eclipsed more than 70 yards receiving this year. He's been a journeyman, but like you said, Mike, very athletic. I liked him when he was coming out of South Carolina. He's been on a number of teams now, so he has a good matchup this week. We'll see what he can do. But those are the guys that I would really key on if I'm the Eagles. I think that they're going to present the biggest matchup issues based on their personnel.
Well, and I really, like to pick your brain on this, Andrew, is now with really a new linebacking core. I mean, I'm imagining this isn't verified yet, but you're going to see T.J. Edwards and Davion Taylor get most of the snaps over Wilson, who obviously isn't here anymore, and Singleton, who kind of got relegated to, just dime package stuff. So how Davion Taylor, who, look, I'm all for giving the kid a shot, but he certainly struggles in coverage right now. I think that's pretty fair to say. And Edwards, that's not his strong suit either.
Right, and here's something to watch. Here's a matchup that I'm really going to be paying close attention to. I think the Chargers are going to try and get Austin Eckler isolated on Davion Taylor as frequently as possible.
Yep.
Take advantage of the inexperience and pepper his side of the field, much like you saw Tom Brady do to Leonard Fournette, of all people, to Davion Taylor on that Thursday night game. So that's something. And T.J. Edwards, like you said, he's not a sideline-to-sideline player. He's a downhill thumper. He's a fundamentally sound player. Had a big week, but he can be exposed if you get him in space and he has to tackle some of these guys. So that's going to be something to watch.
Yeah, no doubt. And, last week, we lauded Gannon for kind of bringing the safeties up a little, being a little bit more aggressive. Is that the best kind of way to attack? Do you want your safeties up? Do you want to be more aggressive this week against Herbert and this assortment of weapons?
He gets rid of the ball so quick, Mike, that I don't know that that's going to be a good game plan, a sound game plan for this week, because Austin Eckler is their leading rusher. He has 400 yards. They don't have much behind him. Justin Herbert has 81 yards on the ground. I don't know that he's really going to threaten on the perimeter as much as some of the other players that you would see, like the Lamar Jacksons or the Pat Mahomes or anything like that. He's not that type of quarterback. But he will pick you apart in the short to intermediate area, particularly with Keenan Allen, with Jared Cook, and with Austin Eckler getting rid of the ball quickly. So I think that's a game where Avonte Maddox is going to factor prominently for Jonathan Gannon, and I think those safeties are going to have to they're going to have to keep their heads on a swivel and be on their game, because the ball is going to get out of his hands very quickly, and they're going to have to react.
Maybe most importantly, the offensive line for Los Angeles and the Eagles' defensive line. Look, 6 sacks last week. I think they hit the quarterback 12 times. We saw Milton Williams, Josh Sweat. Those are two names that you don't really – I mean, Sweat's had his moments, but those are two names that you don't really anticipate being that big of a factor in a game. As the Eagles, can they win up front? I mean, if they can win up front, this really changes the complexion of this game. That Chargers offensive line, not so good.
Right, and I think a lot of them, the defensive line dominance came from them getting out to such a big lead, making the Lions one-dimensional, which much like they had the impact on the Atlanta Falcons game. So it's going to be tough, because I envision the Chargers having the lead for much of the game, if not the entirety of the game. So I don't know how effective they're going to really be. Now, on paper, they should dominate that matchup. You're right. Their offensive line they're not world beaters by any stretch. Josh Sweat should win his matchup. I really like what I saw from Milton Williams. Milton Williams is someone who has continuously worked very hard. If you notice, he's had a steady snap share every week, and you started to see his hard work pay off last week, getting his first career sack. He also got the game ball. I would expect him to see a little bit more playing time based on his emergence.
Who's he taking snaps from?
If I had to pick one, I mean, I think he would see some snaps at defensive end, certainly, and I think on defensive tackle, he's been a little bit more effective, at least last week, than Fletcher Cox. So you have to wonder if it might eat into that slightly. And I still think that Fletcher Cox is an effective player, but I think that Milton Williams could sort of supplement him a little bit. And obviously, Javon Hargrave's been a dominant factor all season long, so I would expect that to continue. And, I think that you're going to see some of the younger players like a Milton Williams and Teron Jackson even is factor in, eat into Ryan Kerrigan's snaps a little bit here.
Yep, those guys, Milton Williams last week, I think you kind of hinted at it earlier in the week, but 4 tackles, he had a sack, he had a quarterback hit, he was making plays behind the line of scrimmage, he was winning at the point of attack, and that's what I was wondering, who's getting their snaps diminish, because I don't know, do you think Williams is more effective on the interior or on the outside?
I think right now, I think probably on the outside, but because he is a quick twitch, he's good in short area, he's very strong at the point of attack. So I think he can anchor if need be. The Eagles don't have a ton of defensive. Actually, they really don't have. After Brandon Graham went down, they don't have any defensive end that can anchor quite like that. And I think the best option would be a Milton Williams. So I think that should allow him to see the field a little bit more as the season goes on. But defensive tackle wise, you also have Hassan Ridgeway and some guys and he can rotate in there. And Marlon Tuipulotu was active last week and saw some snaps. But I think that the value of Milton Williams is the fact that he is versatile and he can play both spots effectively. So that's why I think that he really deserves to see more snaps, because he's shown that he's progressing and he deserves more snaps.
Yeah, hey, we all know Howie Roseman gets a lot of grief for the drafting, but so far the rookie class is looking like they might have found a couple guys. And then you mentioned Watkins from last year, a 6th-round pick. He's really kind of helping this team out. So the last couple drafts, it seems like there are some guys that are developing. The problem is it's the high guys, Andrew. It's Rieger, who's been, I guess you got to say he's been disappointing. Smith has been a little disappointing so far. I'm not calling, he's not a bust or anything. That might be more of the quarterback play, but some of these other guys are starting to show. Davion Taylor, we thought that, why are you taking this guy in the 3rd round? Well, he's getting a chance to play. He's very athletic.
Yeah, Davion Taylor is going to be the real telltale here, because there were other players that they could have gotten later in the draft that have been making impact on their team. And, it's too early to write him off just yet, Mike. He's going to get an opportunity like you've outlined, and now you have to really see if he's making progressions or if he still looks lost. By the end of the season, we're going to have a great idea, pretty much a good idea of what he is and what he can be.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, Adam is here tomorrow. Andrew's back on Tuesday. And the Eagles and the L.A. Chargers. You always have to pause. I'm still pausing before I say San Diego. It still kind of doesn't make sense. But let me ask you, the line kind of suggests this is an Eagles line. A lot of people looking at that line and saying it's only 1.5 points. Do you like Philadelphia in an upset here, or do you think this is too tall of a task?
I do like Philadelphia in an upset here. I think they're going to ride the wave of last week, that momentum. I think they're really buying into Nick Sirianni, and I think that that win last week, although it was against the Lions, that's a galvanizing win, and I think that it's going to carry over this week, and I think they're going to win in a narrow victory. I have the Eagles winning 24-20.
Okay, there you go, Andrew DiCecco, and he'll have more over at InsideTheBirds.com, so you can check out his coverage of this in DiCecco NFL on Twitter. All right, Andrew, great breakdown, man. I appreciate it.
You got it, man. Talk to you soon.
Okay, another edition of Football at 4 in the books. For the football, it's brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long at the Wild Wild West Tropicana Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com.